Hey, what up, guys? Coming to you today with another 2020 boxing award. This one, like I said, I got 12 of them. This is my 5th award that I'm going to be giving out. I already released it on my podcast. Remember, the Standing 8 Count podcast. I posted all the videos, or all the podcasts. I post them right on here. We're 6 episodes in. Right now, we're currently going through our top 10s, our year-end top 10s, and our boxing awards for the year of 2020. So after I do them on the podcast, I release them on here. So this is the last one that I've done. I'm going to get to the rest of them as we get our podcast in. We got another one tomorrow night where I'll be doing 2 more, and then I'll release those later in the week. But let's jump into the next award, which is the most anticipated fight of the year in 2020. The top 5 most anticipated fights of 2020. And the result doesn't matter with this award. The result does not matter. It's about how big the fight was going in and how much we were all looking forward to it. This is not just me. This is the public. I try to express my opinion based on what the public also feels. And these were the top 5. They're close. They were all good. They were all big ones. So let's jump right in. So the number 5 most anticipated fight of the year in 2020 took place on Halloween night, and that was Javonte Davis versus Leo Santa Cruz, when they competed for 2 world titles at the 130-pound super featherweight limit. Now, I say 2 world titles. This wasn't a unification bout or a unified world title bout. Javonte Davis was a secondary lightweight champion. He had won the WBA regular lightweight belt at 135 pounds, and when he defeated Yuriorkis Gamboa last December. Now, he moved down to 130 to challenge Santa Cruz for the WBA Super Championship at junior lightweight or super featherweight, whatever you want to call it, at 130. Now, both titles are on the line, though, because technically they're under the lightweight limit, so both championships were on the line. That was significant. That's the first time that I can even remember that that's happened in my lifetime. So that was a big deal. That was kind of historic. But just going in period, there was a lot behind this fight. Javonte Davis was pretty much seen as a favorite because he's the bigger man. But, there's a lot of criticism on Davis's focus, his training. If at his age he was still, he really wanted to dedicate himself to the sport. And this was by far the biggest fight of his career right here and biggest opportunity to prove himself. He's undefeated. I think he was 23-0 with 22 knockouts coming in. So I don't think people were going to be surprised if he won. It was just he's facing a tough-ass former 4-division world champion in Leo Santa Cruz. And, people really wanted to see how he was going to perform against a very tough Mexican fighter like Santa Cruz. So Davis and coming down to 130 was big because Davis had missed weight a couple times at 130, which is why he moved it to 135, where he missed weight originally and had to, come back later on that day to make weight for the fight with Gamboa. So, again, how would he be able to keep his stamina up in the late rounds against a real fighter like Santa Cruz? And was he going to take it serious? Well, he came in on weight easily at 130, and he looked good going in. Now, Santa Cruz, on the flip side, former 4-division world champion that throws a lot of punches, is a buzzsaw. He can box as well. He uses his height to win some fights, and this was his biggest fight, and it was the kind of fight he's been wanting for a long time. It made it to Showtime pay-per-view, and people really didn't know which way this fight was going to go. So, very, very exciting fight right here, and ended up having a great ending. If you didn't know, Javonte knocked Leo out cold in the 6th round on a 1-punch uppercut. But it was a highly competitive fight. Prior to that, I think Javonte was winning 3 rounds to 2 on all 3 judges' scorecards going into that last round, the 6th. And, but just a highly anticipated fight right here. So next at number 4 is Canelo Alvarez against Callum Smith for the they weren't unified yet, but for 2 of the 168-pound super middleweight titles. Callum Smith was the undefeated champion going in, and the WBC title, which was vacant, they allowed both of them to compete for both belts. So heading in, Canelo was the clear favorite. Not a lot of people knew on a world level, knew Callum Smith, but Callum Smith was the number one fighter at 168 pounds, super middleweight. Canelo had only fought there once when he kind of stopped through. He moved up to win a secondary world title, the WBA regular belt, and knocked out Rocky Fielding in December of 2018. That was the first fight of his big DAZN contract. Then he came back down to middleweight and beat Danny Jacobs in the unification bout. And then he jumped up 2 weight classes to 175 and knocked out Sergey Kovalev to win the light heavyweight title. So, he hadn't fought in over a year, and he was coming into this fight against Callum Smith, really against a huge man. Callum Smith was very big, very tall, but Canelo's a pound-for-pound king, and a lot of people thought he was going to win. I did, too. I thought he was going to win a clean, unanimous decision, in the fight. But there was a lot of people looking at how big Callum Smith was and how long he was, myself included, and thought the fight could be very competitive. And Callum Smith coming in, he was an avoided fighter after he knocked out George Groves in the World Boxing Super Series Finals in September of 2018 and won the WBA Super Championship with that win. So he'd only fought a couple times since then, and, it wasn't against elite competition. So he hadn't fought in over a year, but he was a widely avoided fighter, and I just think a lot of people looked at his height and his size because he was like 7 inches bigger than Canelo, a lot longer reach, and we're just looking at this, the pound-for-pound king's going to have his hands full. And, just a quick result, Canelo dominated Callum Smith over 12 rounds, one-sided rounds. He won pretty much, in my opinion, he won 11 rounds easy, and, became the super middleweight champion and undisputed number 1 fighter at 168. But it still was, when the pound-for-pound king fights, it's people are very interested. So, big-time fight right here. Next is my number 3 most anticipated fight of the year, and that is Vasily Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez for the undisputed lightweight championship of the world. Now, heading into this fight, Lomachenko, this fight was a fight that was being talked about all year. Ever since Lopez laid out Richard Comey in only 2 rounds and won the IBF lightweight title in December of 2019, him and Lomachenko were on a collision course. Because Lomachenko wanted to become the undisputed lightweight champion. So he wanted that IBF belt, and he was going to fight Richard Comey either way. Because Comey was the favorite against Lopez. So when Lopez won, it only made the fight bigger because he's an undefeated young lion on the rise. A lot of power, fast hands, and he's big. So, that was good for Lomachenko going in. Lomachenko was going to go stop a younger fighter, in most people's eyes, myself included, and he was going to pretty much be the lineal, recognized, undisputed lightweight champion. Excuse me. But, and Lopez, undefeated young star on the rise, was going to see if he was ready for that elite level right there. And this fight got a lot of play. Again, I've been doing these videos with you guys for over a year, well over a year now. And this is the first time I ever even came close to and went over 1,000 views for a breakdown video. I broke that fight down in 3 weeks' time, 3.5, 4 weeks' time, I did over 1,000 views on that. That's how big this fight was. And, on ESPN gave us the fight for free. And it was just a huge fight that a lot of people couldn't wait for. Lomachenko was a pound-for-pound top 2 fighter at the time, top 3 at the very worst. And, a lot of people were very much so looking forward to this. It had a big viewership on ESPN. And, big fight right there. So, and if you don't know, Lopez scored the upset, 12-round unanimous decision over Lomachenko in a very close fight. And, became the undisputed lightweight champion. So big deal in this fight, and it was a huge anticipated fight. Number 2 is Aerospace Jr. versus Danny Garcia for the unified welterweight championship. Welterweight in this one, Spence wanted to prove where he was kind of pound for pound, and Danny Garcia wanted to prove that he's, as he always is on the top level, and see if he can pull off the biggest win of his career to kind of cement himself, in the top 3 at welterweight, and that's what this win would have done for him. But all in all, the welterweight division's the best division in boxing. And, Aerospace, I had him tied for first with Crawford at the time. And Danny Garcia was number 6, but, man, I mean, Danny, he's number 6 at welterweight, but he is probably top 3 in any other weight class because that's how talented and deep welterweight is. So heading into this one, and Errol Spence was coming off that bad accident in last year, in 2019, where he rolled his car badly. He only sustained minor injuries, but a lot of people wanted to see if his body was fully recovered and if his head and focus was fully into it. And, so people were very much so looking forward to this fight, myself included. And, Danny Garcia has never really, in his career, gotten his ass whipped. He only lost 2 competitive fights. I thought he got cleanly outboxed against Keith Thurman, but he was in the fight. And he narrowly lost to Sean Porter. So, Errol Spence, who barely beat Sean Porter by a split decision, a lot of people were looking at this one going, okay, Danny's going to be in this fight. It's going to be close. I thought so, too. I thought Spence would win a clean decision, but I thought it would be pretty highly competitive, and you know what? It just wasn't. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't know, Errol Spence completely dominated Danny over 12 rounds and got a one-sided 12-round decision. Danny, maybe won a couple rounds, but he really got cleanly outboxed and outclassed in this one. And, Errol Spence held on to his unified title, and he solidified his top spot in the division. So, that we can talk about in other videos. But, yeah, definitely a highly anticipated fight right here. And it was a good one. We got it right at the end of the year on Fox Pay-Per-View. And I was really, really impressed and excited about that one. And now the number 1 most anticipated fight of the year, in my opinion, and I think most people's opinion, was Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury 2 for the heavyweight championship of the world. This fight was, it's one of the most anticipated fights in history, rematches in history. You had Deontay Wilder, the undefeated heavyweight champion. Guy, I want to say he was 41-0-1 and with 40 knockouts. And the one guy he didn't knock out was he came back and knocked him out in the first round of their rematch against Bermane Stiverne. His only blemish on his resume was to Tyson Fury with that draw in December of 2018. In a fight that most people felt Tyson Fury won. But Wilder scored a couple knockdowns. He almost laid Fury out late in a very dramatic fight. So a lot of people, and myself included, thought Deontay was a good favorite to score a one-punch knockout win, especially after the 2019 they both had. Tyson Fury ended up signing with ESPN in Top Rank, and that kind of stalled the fight with the rematch with Wilder. So in 2019, they did some posturing and they fought other people. Fury fought a couple guys, I don't even remember their names right off the top of my head, and got a couple wins, but he didn't fight top 10 guys, or top 15 guys, or top 20 guys. He just kind of stayed busy in those ones against lower level heavyweights. But Deontay went out and took on Dominic Breazeale, who's a former world title challenger. He went 7 rounds with Anthony Joshua before Joshua knocked him out. And Wilder absolutely destroyed Breazeale in only 1 round. Absolutely destroyed him. Fantastic knockout in that one. 1-punch KO. Then he followed that up in November, and this was the most impressive victory of his career. He took on Luis Ortiz when he didn't have to in a rematch. Now, if you don't know, he fought Ortiz in March of 2018, and one of the best fights I've ever seen at heavyweight, or in general, most exciting fights. It was a back-and-forth fight where he almost got put down and knocked out himself, and he weathered that and came back and scored a dramatic 10th-round knockout over Ortiz. Now, people called for a rematch. They wanted a rematch, but Ortiz wasn't the mandatory heading into that November fight, and Wilder didn't have to fight him again, especially when Wilder had his sights set on a planned rematch with Fury in 2019. So, you know, the fact that he already knew he had the Wilder or the Fury rematch locked up, and he went forward against the boogeyman Luis Ortiz, and then stayed focused and knocked Ortiz out on a one-punch right hand down the middle in the 7th round, and left no doubt that he was the better man than Ortiz. That was impressive. I mean, and so at the end of 2019, especially with Anthony Joshua losing to Andy Ruiz, even though he came back and beat him, Deontay Wilder to me was the number 1 heavyweight in the world. And I thought for sure he was going to knock Tyson Fury out. But Tyson Fury's side, you know, he didn't have an, you know, he did cleanly outbox Wilder the first time outside of the couple knockdowns. And if he would have had another 30, 40 minute left in that 12th round, he probably puts Wilder down, because Wilder was completely exhausted and Fury was putting it on him after he got up. But, you know, and kind of had a so-so 2019. Didn't fight the best fighters, but this was a highly anticipated rematch right here. And Fury, I did call that he needed to have a dramatic, the way he could win the fight. Now, so just huge, a lot of shit being talked, and Fury did not show any fear of Deontay Wilder, which was big. And, if you don't know, Fury absolutely changed his game plan. He stepped into Wilder's chest and just bullied him and beat him up and scored a 7th round TKO. But again, the results don't matter. I'm just giving you the results in case you don't know. But, man, this was one of the most highly anticipated fights, heavyweight fights in history, but also in a long time. I mean, we had not seen a highly anticipated fight like this, at heavyweight. I mean, the Anthony Joshua, Vladimir Klitschko fight was huge. Their first fight. That was huge. Highly anticipated fight. A lot of money in that one. But in the United States, that I don't think that it probably shouldn't have got the love that Wilder and Fury 2 did. And so if we're looking at the United States, the last time we saw a fight of this magnitude, in my opinion, was probably Lennox and Mike Tyson. I mean, that might have been a little bit bigger than Wilder and Fury 2, but this was the biggest fight in terms of anticipation in the heavyweight division since that fight, and that fight was monumental in terms of anticipation. So for me to even mention that fight shows you how big this fight must have been and how anticipated it was. So that's by far, in my opinion, 2020's most anticipated fight of the year. Maybe we'll see a third one. Maybe we'll see Fury and Joshua, and which would be another possibly a bigger and more anticipated one, but definitely the most anticipated fight of 2020 was Wilder versus Fury 2, and that's the boxing award for most anticipated fight of the year. So I hope you enjoyed it. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.